Tonight, a boat explosion at a Fort Lauderdale marina reportedly leaves a Canadian dead.
I saw the boat, literally the top half of the boat, fly up about probably 10 feet.
The scramble to save survivors and the investigation into how this could happen. Bounties have been issued for 2 Canadian activists, now the targets of Hong Kong police.
What they're trying to do is silence free people.
Plus,
3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff.
A NASA spacecraft takes aim at history.
This is very high risk, and anything can happen anytime.
The mission to solve mysteries about the surface of the sun.
From CBC News, this is The National with Paul Hunter.
Thanks for joining us. Adrian is away. A powerful and deadly boat explosion has rocked a marina in Florida, killing a man from Quebec, according to multiple U.S. news outlets. The blast sparked a massive fire that then ignited another boat, sending emergency crews rushing to the scene and leaving witnesses stunned. Mira Baines now with the rescue efforts and the dramatic video of the ordeal, which some may find difficult to watch.
There's 2 boats on fire.
A chaotic scene unfolded at a Fort Lauderdale marina Monday night. Fire crews rushed to a popular refueling dock to look for survivors after a boat exploded. Just moments before, several people are seen gathered around the boat. CBC News is not going to show the blast itself because of the graphic nature of what came next.
Saw the boat, literally the top half of the boat, fly up about probably 10 feet and come right back down.
We received multiple 911 calls from witnesses stating they saw a boat explode, there was a boat on fire, and there were people in the water. Unknown number at that time.
Divers searched the water. The body of one man was found several hours afterwards. Multiple U.S. news outlets have identified him as 41-year-old Sébastien Gauthier from Quebec. 5 others were taken to hospital, 3 with traumatic injuries. Thick smoke and flames could be seen from a distance. People watched in shock at a nearby restaurant, and others tried to help.
It was like a boom kind of, and I turned around and the whole dock was already on fire.
And I was trying to help that guy that was drowning. That I was panicking for him because he was going further and further from the dock.
It's the second fire at the refueling dock this month. The previous time, a man suffered burns and other injuries. A multi-agency investigation is now underway to determine what happened this time and to clean up fuel that spilled into the water. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
2 Canadians are among 6 pro-democracy activists newly named as wanted by Hong Kong. They're all accused of violating a controversial national security law. Sarah Levitt lays out how we got here and the reaction.
It's the latest round of crackdowns by Hong Kong authorities. Warrants issued for 6 pro-democracy advocates with bounties set at the equivalent of 185,000 Canadian dollars for any information leading to their arrest, all based overseas, and on the list, 2 Canadians.
I chose Canada as my home.
Joseph Tay is a former actor and founder of a Hong Kong radio station based in Canada, and Victor Ho,
Chinese Canadians,
is the former editor of the largest Chinese Canadian newspaper who testified before the Special Committee on Canada-China Relations, expressing concern over China's ever-growing influence in Hong Kong. The move comes after Hong Kongers took to the streets through 2019 and 2020, protesting a Chinese-imposed national security law. A law critics call repressive and broad for its crackdown on anything authorities deem a threat to the region.
What they're trying to do is silence free people in UK and Canada and the United States through this act of transnational repression.
I'm really young.
The youngest named on Tuesday, Chloe Chung. She was 14 when she took part in the protests in 2019.
Putting me on the bounty list actually gave me some more power and motivation to do more for Hong Kong.
Last month, other activists known as the Hong Kong 47 were handed down lengthy sentences, one for 10 years. Many are colleagues and friends of Carmen Lau, who is among this latest group.
It is very important to still have someone to continue the work, especially for what they did, because they are the one who pose the pathway, or they are the one who contribute a lot.
Activists not deterred by the warrants, but inspired instead. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, London.
In Edmonton, more than 60 people, including about 25 children, have been forced from their homes after the city declared an emergency and shut down their building. The decision comes after the fatal shooting of a security guard on the property. It's the second such shooting in 2 weeks. Residents were ordered to leave Monday due to ongoing safety concerns. The city says it's moving them into temporary housing as it works to find permanent homes. The Premier of Manitoba is laying out his plan to start moving people out of tent encampments in the new year. He says more permanent housing will soon be available, but as Ian Fraze explains, experts say the transition needs to be done carefully.
Manitoba's Premier says he has a plan to tackle the growing issue of homeless encampments.
2025 for our government is going to be the year that you, as the average Manitoban, start to see big steps.
The province is planning to gradually relocate residents to more permanent housing. One encampment and a few dozen people at a time.
We've been building up the housing stock and the buildings that we need to move people from tents into housing, and then to get them the services of addictions and mental health and other things, so that they can actually stay in housing and not end up back in a tent.
Dan O'Mason welcomes the idea.
I'd be all over that, yeah. I'd be all over it myself, yeah.
He's been homeless for 4 years. He likes to rebuild his shelter, calling the process therapeutic, but he's ready to move on.
This is a stage in my life for my reason that I'm here, but it's almost a chapter that's done for me.
How many unhoused people will be helped and where they'll be moved isn't clear, but Canoe says the project will start in Winnipeg. Experts say the approach can work if it's led by people the community already trusts.
If the government kind of moves in with municipal workers and police, and this is kind of like a coercive move, absolutely, it will completely fail.
In last year's election, Canoe promised to eliminate chronic homelessness, those who've been without shelter for at least 6 weeks. And that number has been growing. 2 years ago, advocates say Winnipeg had 1,300 people without homes. It's now believed to be closer to 4,000. Along the river, Mason says it was the death of his son Phoenix that led him here. He feels Phoenix telling him there's life beyond this shelter.
You know, I just feel like he wouldn't want me to keep doing that because my son was go get up and get him, you know.
If the government provides him and his belongings a home, Mason says he'll wave homeless camps goodbye. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
One of Donald Trump's sons is taking yet another jab at Canada. Eric Trump has posted an edited image on social media of his father using an Amazon shopping cart to buy Canada. That's along with Greenland and the Panama Canal. The U.S. president-elect has repeatedly said Canada should become the 51st state. Some dismiss that as trolling. Others say it's a bargaining tactic as Trump threatens big tariffs on Canadian products. NASA scientists are on edge tonight after their space probe made its final approach toward the sun. Now, they're waiting to confirm it has indeed made history by getting closer than any other man-made object. Katie Nicholson now with the secrets this mission could help unlock.
0. Liftoff.
6 years after it rocketed into space, NASA's Parker Solar Probe is believed to have made its closest flyby of the sun yet, just 6.1 million kilometers from the solar surface.
We have been dreaming for this mission to get as close as possible to the sun since the late 50s.
The Parker probe is the fastest object ever built on Earth, traveling at a blistering 690,000 kilometers per hour, a speed that would get you from Toronto to Vancouver in 17 seconds. It's also built to withstand temperatures of more than 1,600 degrees Celsius.
This is a piece of the heat shield that sits in front of the spacecraft. It's made of a carbon composite fiber, and you can see it's fairly thick.
That and a custom-made radiator help keep the instruments cool. So scientists can unlock the secrets of the sun and its outer edge or corona, that part that's visible during a total eclipse.
The corona is really, really hot, and we have no idea why.
Much hotter than the sun itself, and it's also where solar flares form, as well as CMEs, or coronal mass ejections of plasma, like this one Parker captured up close.
So all of that is incredibly important for aspect of space weather that affects us directly.
After all, powerful flares generated in the corona can wreak havoc here on Earth.
They affect satellites, communication satellites, GPS, the grid. And if you're an astronaut in space, you want to know when one of these things are coming so you can take shelter.
The Parker probe is a gift that keeps on giving for scientists, but they won't know if it survived its close brush with the sun until Friday. That's when it's supposed to be back in transmission range. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
Well, LED headlights are becoming more common, and some experts say that's making our roads more dangerous. As Yvette Bren shows, the problem is particularly concerning for Canada's aging population.
Night driving has always presented challenges, but these days it can be blinding because of newer LED headlights.
It's not in everybody's heads. It is real. Headlights are getting brighter. They're getting brighter, they're getting smaller, and they're getting bluer. And all three of those things increase a particular kind of glare. It's called discomfort glare. And it does exactly what the name suggests. It makes us feel uncomfortable. What we have is the left and right low beam patterns here.
Daniel Stern has spent decades studying car lighting and edits the top technical journal for the industry. He says concentrated LED light may look cool, but its dazzling glare can be downright dangerous.
Because all of that light is coming through a much smaller space. And so when that's in your field of vision, it's really very stabby.
Stern says outside North America, many countries have strict glare controls. In Europe, car headlights are inspected, and many are automated to ensure they avoid dazzling other drivers. A Toronto researcher recreated the effect in a simulator.
Because it really is quite debilitating, and it's a big distractor.
Especially for aging eyes.
As we age, we become more glare sensitive, and we need more light to see. When we're 60 years old, we need triple the light to be able to see any given thing that we did when we were 20. But we're also considerably more glare sensitive.
Your pupils dilate at night to use all available light, so bright headlights leave you squinting to see. Special anti-glare lenses can help a bit.
But there's only so much that the lenses can do, right? If someone's driving on a high beam, the lens can only do so much.
It's hard to link headlight glare to accidents, but lighting experts say Canadian producers and regulators need to take a closer look. Yvette Bren, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Prime Minister is wishing Canadians a Merry Christmas while remaining silent about his political future.
This is a time of year to slow down, to rest, and to connect with the people you love most. It's a moment to put our phones down, to put our politics aside, even when that one cousin makes it really hard, and to focus on what matters.
Justin Trudeau also thanked emergency and other essential workers who are on the job through the holidays. His message comes as he weighs continued calls from within his own Liberal Party to resign. For many, this has been a frantic day, full of last-minute shopping, but new data shows a lot of Canadians are being very careful about how they spend those dollars. Julia Wong now with how the cost of living has cut into holiday budgets.
There's no Christmas splurging for Christy Busby this year. Instead, she's spending hundreds of dollars less than she normally would.
I'd rather buy food, groceries. We don't really need the presents under the tree as much as we want the family and the experience of gathering, more so than the gift giving.
She isn't alone. Many shoppers we talk to are watching their wallets this holiday season.
The rising cost of everyday items, it just forces us to stick to our budget this year.
A recent Angus Reid poll surveyed about 1,500 Canadians and found 44% plan to spend about the same this Christmas compared to last year. 41% expected to spend less.
The cost of living, the interest rates had gone up, and they're slowing down, but there's a lot of household debt, so that makes a difference.
A reality that has many shoppers being more mindful with their dollars.
The Canadian consumer is very unsettled. There's just a tremendous amount going on. Although the base inflation rate now has gone below 2%, it'll take a long time to catch up and for consumers to actually feel reductions in price.
Until then, some, including Busby, are doing whatever they can to keep costs down.
We did like a gift exchange over the weekend, but it was more, we each bought something like $25.
Certainly trying to look for any of those deals and ensure I get the best value possible for this Christmas.
Experts say adding to the low consumer confidence is Donald Trump's looming tariff threats and the economic chaos that could bring in the new year. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
And Christmas Eve can be a nightmare for travelers, but this year, a number of potential headaches seem to have faded away. Rafi Boudjikanian looks into that apparent streak of luck.
So thank you so much for your patience.
In Boston, a passenger captures the moment American Airlines ordered everyone off the plane as a technical glitch grounded all of the company's flights across the U.S.
I was very anxious when we woke up this morning.
But lucky for her and so many others, the airline resolved the issue in an hour. In Vancouver, an ongoing job action by airport janitors threatened to spill out of a designated protest area into the airport.
Many of them have 2 jobs to support their families at YVR, 2 full-time jobs. So definitely money was a central part of this.
But the potential disruption to travelers was warded off by a last-minute agreement. At the same airport, fuel support workers are also in negotiations, as the transport sector deals with numerous unions determined to close a wage gap.
Strikes, lockouts, work stoppages, work the rules, they don't add value to the situation that we have in supply chains in Canada.
But this Christmas in Canada, it's weather that's grounding flights. More than a dozen arrivals and departures delayed in Halifax, dozens more at Pearson International. This university student expects to spend December 24th in the air, though in his case, that's just fine.
My Christmas is on Jan 7th, so technically it's going to be nice to celebrate Christmas on the plane. I'm sure they'll give us some Christmas treat.
For others, the pressure is on to meet Santa's flight schedule and leave him a treat.
Chocolate chip cookies and milk.
Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Former U.S. President Bill Clinton is being discharged from a Washington hospital today after being treated for the flu. The 78-year-old was admitted on Monday after developing a fever. Since being cleared, a spokesperson for Clinton said the family's grateful for the exceptional care he received, and they're touched by all of the kind messages. Tonight, music fans are mourning the loss of Richard Perry, a hit-making record producer.
You're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. You're so vain.
You're So Vain by Carly Simon was just one of many commercial successes that made Perry a superstar in the recording studio. He helped hone the sound of artists like Ringo Starr, Barbra Streisand, and the Pointer Sisters, and was romantically linked to Jane Fonda. Perry died in hospital after suffering from a heart attack. He was 82 years old. Speaking of music, from her powerful voice to her social impact, Katie Lang has left an undeniable mark on Canada's cultural landscape. Ian sat down with Katie earlier this year ahead of her induction into the Canadian Country Music Hall of Fame. That deep dive conversation is next. We're back in 2. Over the holidays, we're revisiting some of the National's interviews with prominent Canadians over the past year. Tonight, Ian takes us through his extended conversation with iconic musician and trailblazer Katie Lang.
From country punk to pop diva, Katie Lang has always tested boundaries and defied expectations. This past fall, Lang was honored at the Canadian Country Music Awards. I sat down with her for a wide-ranging interview just before the big night. Here we are in Edmonton. You're about to be inducted in the Canadian Country Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Did you see that coming?
Never. I never did, actually. I didn't even think about it. But obviously, I'm thinking about it a lot in the last few weeks. And my hotel room overlooks the north, which I see the hospital I was born. Yeah. So Edmonton is such a part of who I am. It's in my blood. And just to be coming back here for this occasion is it's very rich. Very, very rich.
And the embrace, I would assume this says about the country music industry, the community of you.
Well, yeah, I didn't really experience that before, but now I'll take it. No, I think I did. I certainly experienced it in Edmonton, but in country music in general, maybe not, but I knew what I was getting into.
So we were born the same year. So as you launched your career kind of nationally and publicly, I was sitting there in front of my TV watching you. And I can think back to those days and how amazed I was, certainly of your talent, like your voice is so beautiful, but also your exuberance, how unique you were, your enthusiasm. Like you were in your early 20s, like where did all that come from?
Well, I've been thinking about this too in the last few days and weeks. You know, I came from a classical background, but then, you know, in my late teens, early 20s, I was actually a performance artist with a group here in Edmonton. So we really incorporated, you know, conceptual art and found objects, and you know, we were just doing a lot of different things. So when I shifted into country music, I brought all that with me. And I think that that's what made me different, is that I never really saw the need to hone down into something that already existed. I just kind of allowed myself to bring all the tools that I had as an artist into country music. And I think what's fascinating about looking back at what I did is that I really brought all of the aspects of who I was into country music. Like I really did grow up in the prairies. I really did grow up helping my friend do the chores. I really did see chickens get their heads cut off. I really did drive around in trucks and drink Kahlua and milk and listen to country music. You know, that is my history. But that's not where it ends. I studied classical music. I had a lot of variations as well. Like I said, I was a performance artist, so that's quite skewing quite to the left. So I just find it interesting, and I would love to promote using your own cultural history to make you who you are as an artist. I think it's essential.
Yeah, because when I think about like American country music in particular, it's like all these videos. You can almost play a bingo game with pickup truck, dog, you know, reference to
whiskey.
Yeah, whiskey.
Yeah.
Just like all these things and heterosexual relations and relationships. Like it's all there. So here you are growing up in a traditional country environment on the one hand, like the farm and the drinking and all that sort of stuff, but kind of untraditional in other ways. And I guess now looking back at it from 2024, like the country music industry has said you can be a Hall of Famer and be like that. But 30 years ago, maybe a little bit of discomfort about all that.
Yeah, there was, I mean, certainly my sexuality was challenging. But it was also intriguing. I mean, it was a double-edged sword. It's what people love. It's like watching an accident, you know. I think people were fascinated by it, and but also kind of off-put. Like it was kind of always arm's length. Certainly when I got to the States, it was arm's length. They knew that I generated younger viewers, but they also knew that they didn't really want me in their inner political circle, and I certainly didn't want to be there.
31 years ago, I think 32 years ago, you came out publicly, and then there was the Vanity Fair cover with Cindy Crawford, back when magazines really mattered, right? And that was a really big moment for a lot of people. What was that time in your life like for you?
Well, it was a very, very profound period because the AIDS crisis was in full-on raging mode, and a lot of people were dying. So it was real. It was threatening, and homophobia was very prevalent. And my stardom was on the rise, but I felt a real sense of urgency to come out and take responsibility and to change the narrative of being outed on one hand, or being outed on either the far left or the far right, you know, just like owning it and saying, yes, I'm gay, and you know, just starting a conversation and a realistic acknowledgement that that the culture exists and it's normal, and because homophobia was raging.
And just before that, you had taken a stand. You were part of the Meat Stinks campaign.
Meat stinks, and not just for the animals, but for human health and the environment.
And I mean, I get the sense, I was looking back at some of the old coverage, that might have had a bigger impact on your fan base and your hometown than coming out.
It did, yeah, it did.
We were proud of the young lady at one time, and she's killed that pride.
She's like family. We loved her. We were so proud of her. We've got her name down below the hill, and now we're ashamed to have her name there.
And you know, obviously I'm still a vegetarian, and I'm a Buddhist, but I think my approach would have been a little different with Meat Stinks now. I think, you know, obviously I like to raise the idea of consciousness and mindfulness in terms of what we consume and how we consume it. But I wasn't a fan of the text that I was given to read on the onset of that ad. But I still stand by the idea of having an honest conversation with yourself about what you consume.
And again, like I said, here you are about to be a Hall of Famer by the, you know, and so the industry has kind of embraced you,
yeah,
right?
Well, Nixon got a stamp. I mean, let's be honest.
Katie Lang credits her mother for fostering her talent and for encouraging her practice of music.
She drove every week an hour one way after school for us all to study classical piano. She was adamant that we had a musical education.
Up next, more reflections on her Alberta upbringing and unconventional career path.
Now back to our Katie Lang interview. Here, I ask her about some career highlights and her unintentional collaboration with the Rolling Stones. We start, though, with someone close who had the biggest impact on her life in music. I just want to play this video clip for you and just kind of get your reaction to it.
When Katie Lang's mom hears that song, it gives her a special feeling. It reminds her how far her little girl has come. Audrey Lang came up with the $2,000 Katie needed to cut her first record.
Not 2,000.
She now calls it her best investment. It was her daughter's duet with Roy Orbison that brought her a Grammy Award in Los Angeles a few weeks ago. Katie Lang was the only Canadian to win, and Audrey was watching back home in consort.
Sometimes I'm
That's
watching
not
her
fair.
on TV.
You're like Connie Chunging me right now.
Magazine, and I think, is it really Kathy? Is that my little baby?
Katie is Kathy to her mom.
Okay, do I have
and
to keep
together
watching?
they're
A little
headed
bit
to the
more.
Juno Award.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
It's going to be Audrey's first trip to Toronto, and her first trip to the Junos. She's very nervous.
It will probably be just like when she was in a music festival when she was 7, 8, 9 years old. It can be the most nerve-wracking experience of a mother's life, sitting there with your fists clenched.
The piano that got Kathy through those music festivals
Kathy,
now
who gives
holds
you the
some
right
of
to
her
call me
greatest
Kathy?
achievements. The first Juno Award.
Do I look like a
and
Kathy?
last year's
Can we
Entertainer of
just
the Year.
address that right now?
Katie Lang has brought pride to Consort, Alberta. Canada's top country music singer has made this little prairie town pretty famous.
Yep.
So tell me about your mom, the impact she had on you.
Oh, God, she's everything. She was everything. You know, I mean, I've told this story a million times. She taught school, and my older siblings are 11 and 12 years older than me, so from the time they were 5 and 6 to the time I was 5 and 6, she drove every week an hour one way after school for us all to study classical piano for hours. Like, every lesson is half an hour, and there was like 4 or 5 kids, then drove all the way back. She was adamant that we had a musical education. My dad was a really good singer, but my mom was the one that was like, you need a musical education. She knew that music and the arts are key to good education.
Mm-hmm. Okay, why don't I give you a second to wipe your eyes there?
I'm not crying, I'm just
but
tearing.
It's just, no, I know. It's just there. Okay, great.
No, you don't get this back.
Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Let's talk about music for a moment, and we're going to play for our audience a montage of some of your musical highlights. So imagine a world where we've just played probably a little bit of crying. Constant craving. Maybe a little bit of your duet with Tony Bennett.
And we still can see blue velvet through our tears.
There have been so many highlights in your career, like musical highlights, Grammy wins, you know, from pop vocalist to country vocalist. It really shows your range. What would you put among the highlights of your career?
You know, when I think about my career, I don't think about like a very traditional trajectory. I think for me it was all about performance. Like, yeah, Constant Craving was the only song that got played on the radio, really. Crying maybe a little bit, but no, Crying did quite well, but I wasn't a music star, really. I was a performance. I was a performer. Like, I did a lot of television, like a lot of TV. Mm-hmm. And then kind of became a personality, I think, more than anything, with the coming out and the meat stinks and then the performances. It's more like, I'm not an ordinary music star.
Well, it goes like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major left, a baffled king composing hallelujah.
You know, it just occurred to me that there was a time when people thought of you as a throwback, you know, your connection, spiritual, musical connection to Patsy Cline or, you know, Loretta Lynn, but now I kind of think you were maybe born at the wrong time, like given your,
I agree.
Yeah, with like your politics, if we want to call it that, but all your independence, your love of performance, like you were made for Instagram.
Yeah, and the Sapphic Summer. I mean, where was I for the Sapphic Summer? I missed the whole damn thing. Yeah, I feel like I'm actually in a couple different eras. Like, I feel like as a singer, I'm in the 40s. I should have lived in the 40s. But culturally, yeah, I should be young now. But I kind of like being the elder and having, you know, I came out, 30 years ago, mm-hmm. and I did Meat Stinks, talked about veganism 35 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like, you know, sitting back and going, yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Things are evolving slowly.
One of the stories that involves you that I love is the connection to the Rolling Stones. And I love Constant Craving, but I also love Has Anybody Seen My Baby? And so, as I understand it, the Stones did that song, played it, and then realized, uh-oh, this sounds just like Constant Craving, and added you and your co-writer, Ben Mink,
yeah.
as co-writer. How did you find out that you had co-written a song with the Stones?
I was called by my management saying, the Rolling Stones want to give you 25% of their new single. It sounds just like Constant Craving. And I was like, oh, really? And then I listened to it. And I mean, even the guitar lick is the same. Mm-hmm. So.
Anybody say
Yeah, I'll take it.
So do you get,
I get it still royalties. I have no idea what
you don't get a check that has like the logo of the Rolling Stones on it?
I maybe do, but I stay far away from the business world.
From Tony Bennett to Elton John, Katie Lang has collaborated with some of the best.
Anne Murray.
Oh, my crush. I always had a Jones for Anne Murray.
David Crosby.
After the break, more stories from Lang about the artists who left a lasting impact.
In the final segment of our Katie Lang interview, she speaks about some of the remarkable musicians she's collaborated with over the years and the joy of reuniting with her first band. I want to read a list of names of musicians. Just you can give me a sentence or two or whatever comes to mind when you hear these names. So let me, that's just, it actually has to do with your musical highlights. All right, all set?
Yes.
So it's like 7 or 8 names. Loretta Lynn.
Oh my God. Kindred spirit, soul sister, hilarious. Brought bologna, literally brought a thing, like a log of bologna, a loaf of white bread, and a mustard, squeezable mustard thing to this recording session.
Tony Bennett.
Oh. Teacher, friend, mentor, gentleman, pro, Renaissance guy, super liberal, just a friend.
Wow. Anne Murray.
Oh, my crush. I always had a Jones for Anne Murray since I was like 8, 7, something like that. And really, the early Anne, the barefoot Anne, the rugby shirt wearing Anne, the beer drinking Anne, that was an indelible imprint on me for sure.
Roy Orbison.
My spiritual mentor, his voice, sharing the mic with him, sharing a dressing room with him. We never ever really talked. We just sat there, and then we would share a mic, and it would be mighty and immense and surreal. Just power and stillness and silence. It's just like a wide spectrum.
Joni Mitchell.
Oh, untouchable. God of goddesses. I have made a pact to not talk about Joni Mitchell or to do tributes or try not to involve myself with Joni Mitchell because there's nobody better than Joni Mitchell.
David Crosby.
So 9/11, the anniversary was the other day. I was in Denver, and so was Crosby, Stills and Nash. And the towers went down, and we were all airplanes, and I had to get back. I was taking refuge with my Buddhist teacher, and I really wanted to make that date. And I was in Denver, and my Lama was in Los Angeles, and David Crosby offered me a ride on his bus to get to LA. And it was so, so, so generous. But I was worried that people were going to think I was going to end up pregnant because he impregnates lesbians.
But that never happened.
Thanks for laughing. I appreciate that. I didn't know. I did not get pregnant.
Okay.
No, he stayed in the front and did his thing, and I kind of went in the back room and kind of slept.
This video could have gone viral if the answer had been yes there, right?
Oh, totally. Well, should we? I mean, we all love viral.
As we do this interview, it's the eve of your reunion on stage with the Reclines, the first time since 1989. How's that feeling?
Amazing. When I first was mulling over actually performing, I called Ben right away. I texted Ben right away and I said, what do you think? Would you be into getting the Reclines back together? And he was like, oh my God, yes. And so Johnny Diamond was already going to be here, and Gordy Matthews lives in Edmonton. So that it was so easy, and everybody, we met in Toronto to do a rehearsal, and literally it was like riding a bicycle. I mean, it was so ingrained in our DNA and our memory that it was so, like, it just eradicated time, the passage of time. It was, we were all, I mean, we're all grayer and, you know how it is. But
I know how it is.
It's phenomenal. The energy and the love and the excitement around performing is phenomenal.
And so you describe yourself now as retired, but when you light up the way that you just did when you talk about this performance, does it make you rethink retirement at all?
Well, retirement from the slog of make a record, put it out, tour, do the press junket, that, but I mean, random acts of artistic gesture, yeah, I'm all in.
So what do you think? Have you figured out what's next for you? What do we, from the artistic standpoint?
No, I haven't. I'm not in a rush. I don't even know if I will end up doing anything, but like an opportunity like singing with the Reclines in Edmonton for the Country Music Awards, it's kind of like what it feels like when I was asked to sing Hallelujah in Vancouver for the Olympics. I mean, it's like a golden egg being placed in your hand. It's like, oh, I wouldn't even think twice about this opportunity.
It has been a delight to finally get a chance to sit down and talk to you as somebody who has watched you admiringly for like probably 30 years. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. It is right back at you. I feel the same way about you.
I could have watched more of that. Since that conversation back in September, Katie Lang signed a publishing deal with New York-based but Canadian-founded Reservoir Media, who've helped introduce legacy artists to younger generations, including fellow Canadian legend Joni Mitchell and hip-hop pioneers De La Soul. Coming up, we continue counting down the top 12 moments of the year, and number 9 features some fantastic underwater footage.
Actually swims right in front of us as the seal comes back down and chases it.
Seal versus octopus, the subaquatic showdown is next in our moment. Well, this holiday season, The National is bringing you a countdown of the most popular moments from the last year. We're calling it the 12 days of the moment. And what happens in the depths of the ocean normally stays there, unless, that is, a camera-carrying scuba diver happens to be there to capture an underwater skirmish. This deep-sea battle between a seal and an octopus is tonight's moment.
This time of year, we have some excellent diving off the island here, so we were swimming pretty quickly, and then a seal just zipped by us. So we got a little bit closer, and it didn't seem bothered by us at all. We realized that it was actually attacking a giant Pacific octopus. Got there right in time to see it all unfold. The seal went up for, to catch its breath. So I guess the octopus thought, okay, this is my time to get away. You can see it in the video. It actually swims right in front of us as the seal comes back down and chases it. And what octopus do is they release some ink to try to evade their predators. But the seal just kind of, you can see it kind of swimming through the ink. And unfortunately, it does find the octopus. And then they go through a bit of a battle there. So this is pretty rare and very exciting to watch. Our hearts were beating pretty quickly.
You know, ever since that Octopus movie, our relationships with octopuses, octopi, whatever they are, a bit more complicated, right? So we feel sad? I don't know. But apparently it got 2 of the legs, and I think they can survive. They can grow them back. At least I think so. And I think on Christmas Eve, I'm going to say, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. We want a happy ending, right? So that's what it is. Thanks for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Paul Hunter. Take care.